Welcome home. Thank you for your service.
Tonight on Q2, honoring America's heroes.
At first I didn't believe it was 50 years. I've come and I think that no, it is 50 years.
As we approach the 50th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War, Montana's own veterans are recognized with a special ceremony. Plus, concerns on the rise.
I just don't think I would have made it if that Narcan wouldn't have been there.
With a spike in overdoses, we'll share one woman's story as she's now making the most of a fresh start at life. And a sweet treat.
Every time I'd give somebody something, they would be so happy, and it brought some joy to my life.
One woman turning a hobby into a business, all in an effort to help her family in a time of need. The MTN 10 o'clock news starts right now.
From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 10 o'clock news.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us on this Wednesday night. I'm Russ Riesinger. A half century ago next month, the Vietnam War came to an end. It is a war that saw more than 58,000 U.S. soldiers killed and many more wounded. Today, dozens joined forces at the Yellowstone National Cemetery to honor Montana's 36,000 Vietnam veterans who fought in that long war. Our David J. was there in Laurel and explains why this ceremony represents more than just the recognition of an anniversary.
On the 50th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War, citizens and veterans came out to Yellowstone National Cemetery. They'll still be honoring Vietnam veterans out here, but it's the final time for this special ceremony with the special pins given to those veterans who served.
Welcome home. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
From one Vietnam vet to another, cemetery manager Stephen McCollum gives a special lapel pin to Jerry Grimes.
This has been done differently because they were treated differently when they came home. They weren't treated as heroes.
50 years after the war ended, Grimes thinks about how he was able to get his friend's name on the Vietnam Memorial.
And I wrote people and sent in to Washington, D.C., and sure enough, they got John Walter Futbar back on the wall because he was killed the day after he came back from R&R.
Many Vietnam vets were forgotten when they returned home. U.S. Marine Corps vet Tom Lowry was the keynote speaker for this ceremony and talked about the animosity he felt landing in California before receiving a stranger's kindness at the Billings airport.
He says, well, I'll give you a ride. You can, we'll share the taxi. And he says, welcome home. I would love to know who that guy was. He doesn't know how much that meant to me. To say welcome home.
And Lowry talked about how some still deal with the emotions associated with the fighting and how they were treated after the war.
The folks that were wounded and mentally having problems with handling it are still walking around with the scars of the war.
But veterans say they try to stay positive.
It means a great deal. We're all, as he said, we're all brothers and sisters who served and fought at the same time.
And as stated in the Veteran of Foreign Wars closing prayer, grant that in life's battles we may be strong and brave.
And they have a message for other veterans.
So all the rest of you vets that are out there, thank you for your service.
In Laurel, David J., MTN News.
New at 10, the wife of the Billings man killed in a ski lift incident on Red Lodge Mountain 2 weeks ago has now initiated an independent investigation into the cause and circumstances of that accident. Megan Zinni, the wife of Jeff Zinni, is now being represented by Heenan and Cook and has requested any information into his death. She hired Brandon Conlon of Alpine Engineering of Utah 2 days after the accident to preserve and collect evidence. However, Heenan and Cook claim that Conlon, a senior engineer with a specialty in ski lifts, still has not been provided the same access to information as the expert hired by JMA Ventures, who owns the mountain. Red Lodge Mountain says that Zinni died after falling from the triple chair lift on March 10th, an accident they believe was caused by an erratic wind gust. The law firm says that while the investigation will not bring Jeff back, Megan is committed to preventing other families from suffering similar tragedies. Now, we did reach out to Red Lodge Mountain late this evening for a response, but that was already after business hours, and we're still waiting to hear back. Could a statewide sales tax be coming to Montana? One state lawmaker certainly hopes so after the issue once again comes before the session. Those in support say it would help offset property taxes, but would it work? MTN's Jonathan Ambarian breaks down the proposal.
Republican Representative Brad Barker says Montana's economy has changed, and it's time to ask the public if they'd like to see the state's tax system change along with it.
We've lost mills, we've lost mines, we've lost the revenue associated with that production and extraction of our natural resources. At the same time, we've seen a significant increase in the amount of tourism coming to this state.
Barker is sponsoring House Bill 841 and 842, which both received hearings in the House Taxation Committee on Wednesday. Neither bill would actually implement a sales tax on its own. House Bill 842 would ask voters whether they want the legislature to consider enacting a statewide sales tax of up to 4% and use the revenue to reduce property taxes that fund public schools and universities. It would call for exempting required purchases like housing and groceries. House Bill 841 would propose a constitutional amendment, putting it into the Montana Constitution that any general sales tax could only be used to pay down property taxes, unless 3/4 of the legislature voted otherwise. Those supporting the bill said a sales tax could be another tool to help relieve the property tax burden, and these proposals together could keep guardrails on that tax.
The question is, how do we ensure that the local taxpayer isn't just getting taxed again? And this defines a way of doing that.
Those in opposition warned that a sales tax would have a bigger impact on lower-income Montanans and could make education funding more volatile.
I feel it really does put the voter in a very nasty position of loving their schools and wanting to fund them and feeling this terrible property tax burden and having to make this false choice. We urge the committee to not put the voters in that position.
A constitutional amendment needs 2/3 support in the legislature, while a standard referendum just needs a majority. So it will be a tougher task to get HB 841 onto the ballot than 842. But Barker said it would be hard to make the case for a sales tax to voters if the constitutional amendment doesn't also move forward.
I personally, and I think that most members of the legislature, would not support implementing a sales tax without the protections.
Barker says a full 4% sales tax could raise more than $1 billion a year. In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
Tonight, the heads of the Senate Armed Forces Committee are asking the White House for an Inspector General investigation into the use of the messaging app Signal for a group chat about a highly sensitive operation. Meanwhile, the Trump administration continues to defend the president's national security advisor and other top officials for their role in inadvertently adding the Atlantic's editor-in-chief to that chain. The White House denies any classified information was discussed in the chat, but Democrats push back on that claim.
Conversation was candid and sensitive, but as the President National Security Advisor stated, no classified information was shared. There were no sources, methods, locations, or war plans that were shared.
I think they intentionally misled Congress into trying to believe that this was some casual conversation. This is a war plan, and American lives were at risk.
The Atlantic magazine did publish more excerpts from that chat today, showing detailed information about the strikes on Houthi rebels in Yemen, including launch times. Lawmakers are seeking a classified briefing with White House officials about the leaks.
Looking over the city with the Stockman Bank weather cam, where today temperatures were warm. We were mild in the morning. We hit 40 degrees for the overnight low. The daytime high today ended up being 73 degrees. That's the warmest reading that we've had in 5 months. We have to go back exactly 5 months to October 26th since the last time we hit 73 degrees. We did have a little bit of a breeze into the mix along the way as well. Temperatures compared to average, the blue number shows you the average daytime high. So most places were running anywhere from 15 to over 20 degrees above the seasonal average, and tomorrow it's going to be even warmer. In fact, we'll challenge a few record highs along the way. Details on that coming up with the forecast in a few minutes.
Tonight, Riverstone Health is sounding the alarm after a concerning spike in overdoses. Yellowstone County has seen 6 overdoses in just 3 days, a definite uptick from the average of 2 to 3 in 1 week. It hits close to home for a Billings woman, now making the most of her second chance at life after surviving an overdose herself. Our Haley Monaco shares her story.
Dawn Carter's story is one of overcoming obstacles. She struggled with addiction, and after an overdose, she says this is what saved her life.
At that time, the biggest priority was just getting high with whatever was in front of me.
For years, Dawn Carter was stuck in active addiction.
Living on the street from like hotel room to hotel room, I was stealing to support my drug habit.
First starting off with prescription pain pills, then moving on to heroin.
Every day that you use heroin, your likelihood of dying from an overdose goes up.
And that's exactly what happened to Carter in 2021.
I woke up and I realized that I had overdosed and that I had been Narcaned. Thankfully, the people that were with me were responsible enough that they grabbed that Narcan and gave it to me. I do not remember anything before that.
Naloxone, or Narcan, is a drug that can quickly reverse an overdose. Take a look at this Billings police body cam footage from 2021 responding to an overdose. Within seconds of being administered a second dose of Narcan, this woman is back.
Can you hear me? There you go. You okay? Yeah. Stay down. Stay down.
In Yellowstone County, our typical weekly amount is 2 to 3 overdoses.
Over a 3-day span, there were 6 overdoses in Yellowstone County, all believed to be related to an opioid of some sort.
So we'll continue monitoring for the rest of the week and wait until we return to our baseline numbers of seeing only 2 to 3 overdoses every week.
Riverstone Health epidemiologist Taylor Cook says identification of this spike came from ODMAP, an overdose tracking system for first responders and health departments.
It's a mapping program where you can put in anywhere that an overdose happens. So it gets really specific down to the street, a house, a school, anything.
In this case, 5 people received Narcan. 1 person died.
If I had not been Narcaned that day, then I wouldn't have even had the chance to get where I'm at today.
Now, with over 3 years clean, Carter has built her life again, with a great job and her kids back.
My kids, you know, they would have been the ones who suffered the most if I hadn't made it through that day.
Regaining the light back in her eyes and the will to keep going.
If I can do it, anybody can do it.
In Billings, Haley Monaco, MTN News.